Hi guys, it's Ben here from the Pride of Villa, and in this video we're going to be discussing about how Aston Villa can push on for top 6 place in the Premier League. We're going to go through how Aston Villa's recent form may be detracting from this opportunity, why I think we should be going for this, and 3 points that I think will help us get to top 6. So if you are going to enjoy this video, obviously please leave a like, subscribe, turn those notification down below so you never miss out on content like this today. Please leave a like and subscribe, obviously. Turn on those social media pages and go to follow them. But without further ado, let's get started. So, we're going to be talking about the top 6. Now, obviously, in the Premier League, first place to fourth place get Champions League football place, whilst 5th and 6th place will get a place in the Europa League. Now, Aston Villa currently sit in a 9th place with 39 points, but with 2 games in hand due to our first game of the season being against Man City being postponed due to Man City's place within the Champions League still being up for grabs, and also because we had the COVID outbreak, I believe, as well. So Aston Villa currently have a 2-game advantage over the teams above us. And we're going to be talking about how Aston Villa, in my opinion, can and should be going for the top 6 place. Now, I'm going to disregard the Wolves game that is happening tomorrow as of recording, just because really, unless we win, we're not really going to be moving up in the place. Tottenham have a better goal difference than us, and the only team that can really move above us is Arsenal if they are to win against Burnley tomorrow. But really, we're going to be spending this place in 9th place until the game at Newcastle. Now, Aston Villa this season have had a brilliant season in comparison to last season. You know, we survived by being 35 points, 1 point above the drop zone, doing it on the last game of the season against West Ham, relying on other games with Watford and Bournemouth to make sure that our place was secure. And it was just, although we did eventually survive, we did get the Carabao Cup final. Ultimately, for me, it wasn't. Well, it was a positive because the idea was to try and maintain our place in the Premier League, maintain a bit of a footing and understand where we want to be next season, because it needed to be better next season. For me, it was that idea of it needs to be better, but ultimately we did our job. We survived this year after the amount of money that we spent. We also did get that Carabao Cup final, so in a bit of a way, it was a bit of a success this season. I just wish we could have maintained it a bit more and perhaps got a bit of better results against some of the other teams. We came into this season, obviously, with a lot of anticipation. We were going to decide what is going to happen, how are we going to turn around this form, are we going to be relegated? Teams were saying we were going to be relegated, and they didn't have a chance for us. Now, we'd signed Ollie Watkins, 33 million from Brentford, Emile Martinez from Arsenal, Bertrand Traoré from Olympique Lyon, Matty Cash from Nottingham Forest, and I believe that was it. And then obviously Morgan Sanson that we signed in this window, and was given some contract extensions to the like of Jack Grealish, Jacob Ramsey, and Johnny McGinn, and Ross Barkley from Chelsea as well. Let's not forget about Ross Barkley from Chelsea on loan, which is an interesting topic to talk about. Now, obviously, Villa got off to the brilliant start. The wins against Sheffield United 1-0 at home, beating Fulham away 3-0, and then we went on to a massive challenge, Aston Villa versus Liverpool. Now, we all know how that went, 7-2, a truly unbelievable result, an unbelievable performance to see. This is the same Liverpool that for the past 2 to 3 years have dominated the football world. Come off a brilliant Premier League season for them, and they come into this looking like a shadow of their former self, and Aston Villa put them to the sword. We then continued that run of form, beating Leicester City away, the 1-0 there with Ross Barkley. Really, we went in a bit of dipper form, then obviously losing to Leeds 3-0. I think we also lost to West Ham and Brighton, and then we went on to beat Arsenal 3-0, West Brom 3-0. And it's almost been that sort of consistency this season for me. We get a really good set of games, we win 2-3 games, and then we lose, and then we win, and then we lose, and we don't really seem to get draws. We've only had 3 draws this season, which is quite remarkable. 12 wins, 10 losses, and I think in part of the losses, some of them have been performance-wise, they've just not been good enough, especially in the more recent times. Some have been VAR, especially West Ham, because that was absolutely stupid, and Watkins should have had that goal that got us in the ascendancy of a draw. But overall, regardless of where we finish this season, it is much, much better. I know I said in my predictions I think we'd see 15th. I know Nathan was a little bit more confident. I think he said 11th or 10th. But I think both of us can agree it's been an absolutely, truly great season. And although I think a lot of us would say we'd like to still push on for top six, it's still very possible. I'd like to go as far as we can with this team, considering we're not going to be in a Carabao Cup final or FA Cup final. I'd like to see us go as high as we can and really try and push for it. Even though I don't think we're ready squad-wise, I'd just like to see us at least get there to show that we are back in the game and we are Aston Villa and we're here to stay. So let's move on to why I think top six is a good thing for Aston Villa. It's, as I said, it shows that we're in the market again. We are in that competition in the Premier League. You know, let's forget what everyone else says. Aston Villa is a big club. We are one of the founders of the Premier League. We are European Championship winners from 40 years ago. We are still a big club. We are the heart of the West Midlands. In my eyes, you could say Leicester. But really, it's us. We are a big figure in Premier League and in English football. We are a team that deserves to be in that top 10 because we do have quality. We have a manager that, admittedly, myself, I would have had him sacked last season just because of performance-wise. It wasn't good enough, and I think it would have been very stupid to, sacrifice the Premier League for a manager that wasn't good enough in the first place. Players that just weren't good enough, to say that we've got a manager now that understands the game of the Premier League. He's finally had that year of experience and knows what he's doing. I still think at times he needs to be better with his team selection and lineups, and also stop playing a 4-3-3 because it's pissing annoying. Overall, I like Dean Smith and I agree he is the man for us right now. It's just a case of when we do get to top six eventually, perhaps is Dean Smith going to be ready to compete on an international level? We'll have to wait and see. But as I said, top six, it establishes us as that big contender in the league. It makes us think that we are a big player again, which means bigger signings. We can attract bigger players. And Morgan Sanson, although perhaps he hasn't had the start he would like, I still think it's a very good signing. We were linked with him last summer. To see him come in now, it's really exciting. It refreshes that midfielder. Obviously, since McGee and Barkley have not been performing. And that was ultimately the reason he was brought in. When Barkley was injured, we needed a bit more experience. We sent Conor and on loan, who's having a blinder of a good time at Swansea. And I'd just like to see him break into the team. But apart from that, I think everyone's really doing bloody well. Apart from his injury, I thought Matt was just having an outstanding season. But I think that was in part to Dean Smith not really rotating that squad. He's played 21 of the Premier League games when he got injured. So I would have liked to see some rotation there. This the fact that we sent Gilbert out in hindsight, we didn't know, but you sent Gilbert out for Elmo. You just got to wonder what's happening there. Obviously, Emiliano Martinez, I think, has been absolutely solid. Part of me is not 100% convinced. I still think that there is a bit more of a working process with Emiliano Martinez, but I think he's been a much better upgrade in my sense over Tom Heaton, which isn't to say he's a bad keeper. It's just that when you look at the two of them, it just feels incomparable. Obviously, Ezri Konsa has stood out this season like a gem. He's the future of England's backline. Obviously, Matt Targett having a much greater season than last year because I thought he was bang average. But this year, he's probably one of the best left-backs in the league right now for England. Midfield's a bit weird, obviously. Now, McGinn, I've said this already, and Barkley not performed. McGinn hasn't performed for me since his injury last year, whereas Barkley's just not really done anything since his injury as well. And it's really looking unlikely that we're going to sign him, but I wouldn't be surprised if Dean did if he wanted that bit of squad depth as well. And then we've got to obviously talk about Douglas Luiz, who's become a real bloody gem in that central holding position. He's absolutely magnificent. We've obviously still got Nakamba there, who I do like. He's been having some good performances, and I actually think against Sheffield United he was probably our best player, even though we didn't go on to win the game. He did look, for me, really composed and commanding. And then obviously we've got that front three, Jack Grealish, the heart and soul of Aston Villa. He is one of the best players in England football. Ollie Watkins, who is having a much better than season than Wesley was having, and Samatta. I think in part Wesley, I've already said this before, he was finding form before he got injured. I think he will come back, and I want to see him come back because I think there is a nice better option there to have than Davis, who needs to go on loan so we can have more experience with him. But he's having a great season. I believe he's in 10 goals already. So he's doing really bloody well for a player that came from the Championship and was argued with the price tag, could he perform at this level, and he is. And then obviously the winger position. Now we've seen a plethora of players there. Trezeguet, who for the work rate he's doing, really perhaps isn't the first option, he's probably the last option. El Ghazi, a bit on and off, had a really great December, but ultimately just isn't the former self that he was in the Championship in those last few games that Ronaldinho or Ronaldo that I see him as. And then we have Bertrand Traore, that new signing, who I think at the first was having a bit of a rocky patch, but I think now has grown into the game and is actually looking like a good buy for Aston Villa. I don't really like seeing him play. But together, when Jack Grealish is there, and when they're on their game, Aston Villa are unstoppable. We can beat any team in this league, perhaps not Man City right now because they are unstoppable. But if that team cohesion is there, we can go for top six, and then we can attract bigger players. We can improve that bench, obviously, as we've said, and we can really have a go at top six next year, or perhaps just try and maintain that big factor of Aston Villa whilst going for it again the next season after. For how do we get top six? How does top six happen with Aston Villa? Well, let's look at these 3 points. Number one, consistency. Now, I've already said this before and priorly. Consistency is a massive problem with Aston Villa for me. We can go from beating the likes of Arsenal and Leeds and these really great results, but it's what you do after the game, after that next game, because it doesn't matter. That result is cancelled out if you can't beat these teams. And it's really looking back at recently, we beat Leeds 1-0, a really good performance there. Considering they beat us 3-0 at home last season, so it's nice to get that reverse result away. And then we go on to Sheffield United, who are bottom of the league, who look absolutely poor. And we turn them into having some form. We give them consistency. And it's just, we're a mile ahead of Sheffield United in terms of our player quality. And we made them look like they're the ones that are fighting for top six. You know, it's just, it was so poor. And it's not been like that all season. You know, as I said, we started off the season that winning run. We lose to Leeds, lose to West Ham, we win a game like Arsenal, and then we lose a game, we win a game, we lose a game. It's about finding consistency, because when you find consistency, you maintain concentration, you're in that good mood, you can always win your games, you can always maintain a good positive attitude between the team, and we're going to be pushing on for a really good strong finish. Now, as I'm recording, West Ham are currently sitting at 6th place with 45 points. They've been doing really well this season, and since bringing in the likes of Kufal, Souček really promising again, and Jesse Lingard having a resurgence. They're doing really well. Liverpool aren't finding form. Tottenham are a bit wishy-washy. I think this is a really good time for Aston Villa to capitalise, like Man City have done. Find this consistency, find that form, and we can have a really strong finish to the season. Number 2, player quality. Barkley and McGinn need to step up. The winger's position needs to be fullified when Jack Grealish isn't here, because without him, we're not looking like we're doing much. We just look lost in the pitch, playing long balls, which we need to stop, because we're not a team that's built with these big, muscular, tall players. We're built with more smaller players that want to focus on keeping possession and using that pace to get in front of teams. We need to make sure that players are always performing and Dean Smith getting the right selection. Sanson needs to starting over the likes of McGinn, over the likes of Barkley. Jacob Ramsey, I don't mind. I actually think he's coming along nice. I do say I wish he'd offer a little bit more, and I think he is a bit raw right now. It's a nice option to have him there. And I know obviously Douglas Luiz or Nakam, not either one of them can do really well, but I perhaps, for more creativity reasons, I would bring on Douglas Luiz. But we need that player quality to shine through, and then we also need that back line to maintain shape. Obviously, El Mohammadi playing these games now until Matt Cash can be available. He needs to show, if he is going to be signing on for next season for another year or whatever, he needs to really stamp his authority in that position and make it his own. Otherwise, and quite frankly, I think it already is going to be happening, he's going to be out the door. But I like the likes of Ezri Konsa. I think Mings needs to stay a bit sharp all the time. I think in the past few games he's had a really good games. He's been really set and feels like more of a captain than Jack Grealish for me. But we just got to make sure that he keeps it on a consistent basis. And then Matt Targett, I think, is doing really bloody well. And although Neil Taylor's in really competition, we could result in complacency because he knows he's not going to get beaten. We know Matt Targett has due to some injury problems in some games where he doesn't perform very well because of a lack of concentration. So he needs to maintain that. But it's just overall making sure that players are always performing at the highest levels and the abilities that we know that they can produce. And then finally, the third point in mind, it's also just accepting that performances do matter. You know, we can go out and win a game, as I said, like Leeds 1-0 and put in a really bloody good performance. We can go to these teams like Leicester, like Arsenal, and scrape out these 1-0s, these 3-0s. An attack is the best defence. I think we need to focus more on being attacking, perhaps change that formation, and also link back to Dean Smith getting it right with the team. When a player isn't performing, he needs to be subbed out. McGinn hasn't been performing for a very long time. He needs subbing out. He needs refreshing. We need Morgan Sanson in that team. Champions League experience. You don't sign a player like him to sit him on the bench, because otherwise, why did we send O'Connor Hurahan? Why not just bring him back in and save yourself the money there? I just don't understand that. He needs to be playing. Barkley needs to kick up the arse, because he needs to find that passion he had when he was first playing for Aston Villa. He was an absolute star, and he looked like, even through those first few games, he looked like worthy of that 40 million price tag. It's got to be the performances. The performances need to stay at that contained level. It's all fine if you can defend a goal for 80 minutes, but if you concede and aren't looking like that, defensively you're strong, you're not maintaining that solid line, how are we going to expect to feel confident going into the next game when we're playing that like a Man City or a Leicester or a Chelsea even, who are doing really well in form right now? How are we meant to maintain that if we can't defend? We've got to make sure that line stays solid, and we've got to make sure that players are being refreshed, the squad rotation's fine, and formation-wise, stop playing 4-3-3 because it sucks. And we need something a bit different there. We need to make sure that players are always at the top of their games. But overall, I've already said this, I don't think it's a bad thing regardless where Aston Villa finished this season. It's just, in my mind, considering where we are and how close we've come, some of the poor results that we've given away, like Brighton, like Leeds, like Sheffield United, like West Ham, it just makes you think, if we had those results on our side, could we have pushed for the top 6? I think we can. And I still think it is possible, even though really now teams are finding their form, finding their footing. You know, it's only 6 points. It's still possible. We have those 2 games, and so we can even do it on the last game of the season. But ultimately, Villa need consistency. Villa need players to step up, and ultimately, Dean needs to know when it's time to get it right if we are going to go and push for that top 6 place. Alright guys, just going to wrap it up for this video. If you did enjoy, please leave in the comments down below what you think. Do you believe we are going to make top 6, or what do you think this season has been like for Aston Villa? Has it been good? Is it bad? Leave a comment or a like and dislike, and we'll tell from there. Obviously, follow us on our social pages. It will do us a massive bunch. You can see us lively react to games when we're crap or when we're absolutely brilliant. But without further ado, I've been Ben, up the Villa with the pride of Villa. We'll see you later, boys.